Hey everyone, this is your weekly episode of the Zephyr podcast. I am Benjamin.
Hey, and I'm Fabio.
How you doing, Fabio? Any cool projects you've been working on this
Yeah,
week?
yeah, good. I'm not sure. I would flag it under cool, but yeah, I've been doing some Linux thing for a change. Just as a weekend thing, I bought a network card that is not supported. This is like 10 gigabit Ethernet fiber network card. So yeah, I added. I sent a patch to the kernel mailing list for a change via email, just to remember how it. And yeah, it's pretty funny. So I was doing some research to see if someone else was working on it, since it's a fairly new thing. And I ended up in a forum for people doing home networking stuff, and found that there was another guy that reported it wasn't working with the upstream driver, and sent a message like, "Oh, I'm working on it. I'm going to send a patch upstream." I'm like, "I just sent one as well." So I looked up the guy, and I checked his GitHub to see what else he was working on. And I found that he was doing code review in Zephyr. So I sent him a message on Discord, and we ended up chatting for 1 hour about random stuff and hardware and embedded. Hi, Michael, if you're listening to this. So we're working together on it. Linux,
Nice. Small world.
yeah, small word, and yeah, Linux development is fun if you've never sent patches via email and done code review via email using Moot as an email client. It's like old school. I like it. Yeah,
Yeah,
what's
I still have to work on my first Linux patch at some point, but I'm scared.
yeah, it's one of the things, right? Like you use it on your laptop or station, you think like everything is, well, what am I gonna fix this? The moment you start trying something niche or new, or just detailed configuration for something, it's same stuff. Everything is
Oh,
broken
I
into it.
would totally only like focus on fixing typos initially and stuff like that.
And way to go. Just for the
Yeah.
process, right? Sometimes you need a
Yeah.
simple change just to experience the process. Yeah. Anyway, it was.
Yeah.
I had to set it up again. Last time I did it was in 2023, and I half lost the configuration, but it's not that bad. It's easier than it was 20 years ago. Yeah.
Sure.
How is Zephyr doing? Are we surviving 4.3?
Yeah, I think technically the release was already out last week, right? When we
Yeah.
recorded, I was still midway, sort of like through recording the demo video and so on. But yeah, the release is out. We've merged everything, like all the backlog we had. CI survived mostly, and it was nice to see people excited, like online, seeing people. Like I saw it just like it was on Reddit earlier, just today. People excited about the new instrumentation subsystem, people who want to play with things like the DT Doctor and so on. So that's quite nice. Next week, as a reminder, so on November the 26th, on Wednesday, next Wednesday, we will have our typical AMA or Q&A session with the release managers, Chris and Johan. So if you have any questions, thoughts about things that made it into Follow 3 or didn't make it, and you want to discuss with us, this will be your chance. So join us on YouTube, LinkedIn. We will be putting the links in the notes. But yeah, really looking forward to this. And we have also, and I don't know off the top of my head, I should know, but we did decide on the date. I would like to say April the 17th of next year, but you might remember last week we mentioned that we are going to move to a yearly or like twice a year sort of release cadence. And so Zephyr 4.4 is planned for mid-April. We actually have the date now out there. So yeah, pretty exciting. Did you, I don't know, Fabio, did you find time to catch up on other interesting news besides Zephyr 4.3, of course, who made the rounds, but
Was
anything
absolutely
interesting?
the main topic of the week, right? So the YouTube algorithm fed me some interesting news on open source. So apparently, Open Source Summit Korea happened, and there were a couple of keynotes that I found pretty interesting. The first one is from Linus, and he did a talk somewhat similar to something that he did before in Dublin, actually, with Dirk Hondel. So we're gonna link it in the description. But in this I think this is the first time that he addressed AI a bit, and I think he mentioned Rust as well. I can't remember in the details, but one of the things he said that caught my attention was that he was talking about people getting started with doing development in Linux, and it can kind of be extended to embedded in general. I found it funny because I was chatting with a friend of mine earlier in the week, and we jumped to the same conversation. What Linus said is computer have gotten so complicated and your expectations of programming have gotten so much higher, then it's much harder to get started. I think it's something that we need to keep in mind when we work on a complex project, because in Zephyr we have the same problem, right? The complexity is high, and there's a lot of work that obviously you, Ben, do together with everyone else who contributes to the documentation for helping people getting started, both in using the project as well as contributing, doing your first contribution. So something worth keeping in mind, right? Like getting started on doing embedded 20 years ago when you had bare metal 8-bit microcontrollers was a bit of a different story than it is now. There's a lot going into it. You also mentioned the guitar pedal project, but I checked the repository. It's not doing that much anymore.
Oh, okay.
In a
Okay.
few weeks.
Well, I mean, he needs to use Zephyr. Maybe it will be, I don't know, faster or more exciting this way. But I actually would love to see guitar. There might be some out there, some guitar pedals using Zephyr. I might even have mentioned that before on the podcast. But I would love to see something sound in Zephyr. Would be awesome to see more of. Yeah.
That's right.
Anything else from this open source conference?
Yeah. So the second big name in the kernel, Greg Hartman. By the way, Greg Hartman is kind of the person that made me get into open source. He gave a talk at my first FOSDEM about your first Linux kernel patch, and I was in the audience, and then I went home and I did my first
That's cool.
kernel patch.
Well, actually, FOSDEM. I'm glad that you're mentioning it. We have, well, as it's been the case for the past many years, Zephyr is going to be very well represented at FOSDEM. We unfortunately don't have a dedicated like dev room and so on, but we will have a table that we will be sharing with other Linux Foundation projects, and you still have a few days or slightly or just a bit more depending on the dev rooms, but there's many parallel tracks basically at FOSDEM. So as a reminder, it's beginning of, at the turn of January and February next year in Brussels, Belgium. And so, be it in the embedded developer room, the gaming developer room, RISC-V, security, networking, like there's a bunch, like video, etc. I'm sure many of you, one way or the other, you have things to say about how you've been using Zephyr for whatever project and applications that might be a good fit for some of those dev rooms. So don't miss the deadlines for the call for papers. Try and share and tell the world about what you've done with Zephyr. I would love to see lots of Zephyr talks there.
It's a massive conference. We'll be hanging around. And it's hard to meet, but we have a chat in Discord to sync up. Yeah.
Yes. It's. The old timers know where to meet, but it can be overwhelming in a sense. But back to Greg and the talk he gave. Like, what was it about?
Yeah. So Greg addressed Rust this time. So the two big topic these days, and short presentation to the point. He's a very good presenter. So he gave you example about memory safety and unwinding. And the unwinding one, I wasn't expecting it because he mentioned automatic unwinding technique that kernel has in C.
And okay, so let's take a step back and assume that I know nothing about what unwinding is. Maybe I'm the only one, but
no, fair enough. So when you write low, not only, but This is something that happens a lot, especially in initialization code for drivers. Your function starts and you have to execute a number of steps to get your driver initialized, but it may fail because something may be wrong. And if it fails, you have from a certain point of your initialization function, you have to undo everything you did up to that point. So in C, the traditional way of doing it is with goto. You have your do something, do something else, do something else, and then if each one of those steps fails, you have a goto that points to a point that deinitializes the thing that you did up to that point and all of the other below. So for a complex driver, you could have like 5 or 6 gotos, and you want to make sure that you jump on the right one. And this gets complicated when you start modifying the function and things changes. So modern languages have unwinding helpers. Like I know on Go, you can specify a way of like, hey, if the function returns from this moment on, do this thing, and you can stack them up, and they get called in a reverse order. Now, obviously, C does not have anything like that, but apparently, there's a GCC extension to call if I understand correctly, to call a function when a variable gets out of scope. And somebody managed to build a unwinding helper in C on top of that, which is mind blowing. So yeah, that's good stuff. If you look at the kernel code, there is this macro function thing called guard, and yeah, it does that. It's used to automatically undo stuff like allocated memory or locks. This is another thing where you see it often.
Actually, that reminds me. I might actually link to the video, but I didn't watch the whole thing yet. But I caught a presentation from someone talking about sort of the history of programming languages, etc. And something that they were mentioning is that there's this quote unquote go-to statement considered harmful, sort of like, this saying. Supposedly, I mean, it is more or less from Dijkstra in like 1968,
Right.
but it's not like really him. It's the editor of whatever book was coming out or whatever paper who did like a clickbait title. Like it wasn't that strong, as strong in the way he meant that, but the editor just made it a clickbait. But
yeah, go to it. Go to is a bit of a polarizing topic, right? But it's the right thing to do in many cases, and if you use it properly, it's fine. The problem is when you modify the code, it's easy to introduce new bugs and
exactly. You can sort of easily do it okay and do it right the first time around, but then keeping it right over time as code evolves might be a challenge.
Right. Yeah. So I was looking into this feature to see if there is a chance that we could use it in Zephyr, right? And the answer is no. The answer is no, because it's a GCC extension. So I don't think that I very much doubt that the other compilers are using it. I was hoping that it was a C17 or something. But an interesting thing I found while I was researching on this is that I ended up falling into the netdev documentation in the kernel, and they don't like this, but they don't explain why. So if you know why, jump in the Discord chat and tell us why. So yeah, they're not too enthusiastic about it. They say netdev remains skeptical about promises of all auto cleanup APIs. So they don't like guard. They also don't like the dev underscore thing in the kernel, which are functions that associate stuff like chunks of memory with the device driver, and when your device driver unloads, it frees them automatically. I suspect it's for a performance reason, because the networking code is critical. They want it to run fast. They want it to keep it under control. But what they do like is something called scoped guard, which is a similar thing, but it's implemented kind of like Python which like the thing the thing where you grab something like a lock and then you indent the code under the function, and then the lock or file descriptor gets released or closed when you get out of that. So that's a thing. We actually have it in Zephyr for spin lock. We have something called k underscore spin lock uppercase, and it's exactly that. It grabs a spin lock, and when you exit the chunk of code, it releases it automatically. I do not like it because you have to indent your code under it, and then you run out of columns. But network code is weird. It's a bit of its own thing. Yeah, anyway, we'll link the file in Linux that implements this so that you can read it and explain me how it works, because I cannot understand. I need to spend more time on it. Very cool.
Yeah, but by the way, on the topic of Rust, you were telling me that so there was this major Cloudflare outage earlier this week,
Yeah.
and it turns out that Rust might be the culprit, or like what was the
Yeah, this was interesting. So yeah, first thing, yeah, if you don't know what happened, yeah, Cloudflare broke, and apparently it broke 20% of the internet. So as a start, I think there's some reflection that we should do in the fact that it's the internet is supposed to be very decentralized, and instead, if Cloudflare breaks, like my girlfriend came to me and was like, "Hey Fabio, what is Cloudflare?" I like, do you want me to explain you about reverse proxy, DDoS protection, and CDNs, or is the internet broken? I explained her about CDN, but the internet was broken. That's not what she wanted to know. Anyway, yeah. So big event, massive outage. Everything goes down, and the Cloudflare guys released. They wrote a very good blog post. Props to them for doing a detailed explanation about what happened. It was like a screenshot of the code of what went wrong, and yeah, it was a chunk of Rust. So I think it's a good reminder, because like Greg was addressing this thing as well in his talk, right? Like all the push for Rust is because all the extra feature in memory protection and code safety and the compiler catching errors, but you still need to write good defensive code. Otherwise, it's gonna break anyway.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. We also had
but
some.
yeah, well, it lasted a couple hours, and then everything went back to normal. So
Yeah.
all good, right?
Yeah. Well, that's how this thing goes. But really, I think they handled it pretty well, especially the communication part. It was good. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a magic bullet, right? There were some news as well about so Ubuntu switched coroutils and su, the command, to a Rust implementation, and there were a bunch of problems with that as well. So, but bugs are bugs.
Okay.
They
Yeah,
code bugs.
yeah. It's not like, I mean, you can have the best programming language in the world. Like you can still, yeah, it's whatever logic you put in it. So
yeah, and it's scary to think that people are replacing stuff like coroutils and STU, right? They've been there for a while.
yeah, well, and there were also some interesting, like more Zephyr centric news. I spotted a few. I don't know about you, but one is, and I've had the name of this project on my radar for a bit, but they've been doing a lot more with Zephyr these days. Moddable, Moddable. So this is basically an open source solution for doing JavaScript on embedded devices. And they have a really nice blog post, and the code as well. I actually need to try and run it, because looking at the code, like it's actually really exciting. They have JavaScript based wrappers on top of things like the networking APIs. So like you can like set up your Wi-Fi stack and have a JavaScript callback whenever like the connection status changes. You can have a callback and do whatever, just a few lines of code, and like you use JSON to pass your configuration parameters, etc. This looks like pretty feature complete, right? They are showing examples of file system and like storage API, BLE, Wi-Fi and networking, and so it feels pretty exciting. I will, if anyone from the Moddable project is listening, feel free to reach out. I will probably reach out to you guys. This is really seems to just work. I mean, it might not be for everyone, but I do like the idea of scripting. And yesterday we were doing the tech talk with the Arduino guys. It's kind of the same approach. You have sort of like Zephyr as literally as an OS effectively, and then on top of it you use higher level APIs, be it the Arduino high level APIs, or like even a dedicated language like JavaScript, or people from MicroPython or CircuitPython. They also do interesting things. So I quite like the idea. If anyone has had a chance to play with it, I would love to hear about it, either on Discord or in the just comment. Or if you haven't tried it, I think at this point, from what I see, I would actually encourage people to check it out, because it's quite cool. And there's also something else which is maybe cooler. It's Doom on Zephyr. That's something we started to see these already a few months back. I think there's even a talk at ZDS that was given. Some of the folks from NXP have been playing with with running Doom on. This one is actually a Nordic port. It would seem.
Yeah, it's a bit of a thing on embedded to try and
Yeah.
port Doom to everything and anything possible, right? But yeah,
Which
not
means
a
in this case they have it being Nordic. I guess one of the things they tried, and they apparently have been successful, is that you have a Bluetooth keyboard to as a way to control the game, which is quite cool.
Yeah, I had a look at the repository actually. I think it's like an intern project or a student project. I'm not too sure, but if you look it up, it's a fork from a project under the Nordic Playground org on GitHub. So this originated from Nordic, like the port originated from Nordic. I think they put it together as a demo of the 5340, which was their chip with the dual core, with the Bluetooth stack on the separate core. But if you look at that one, they mentioned that it wasn't supporting the Bluetooth part because it needed to be ported under Zephyr. But then the fork is apparently a port of this code to run under Zephyr. And yeah, the main thing is that they added support for BLE keyboard, and I think they're working for supporting gamepads as well. So it's gonna be a cool demo, right? Because you can game on it properly. The NXP one that they had in Amsterdam as ZDS was running on an NXP CPU, and in that case they had the joystick and button wired directly to the board, which is more the traditional way of doing it. I'm wondering how general purpose the port is. Like, can I run it on on a 52840 or on something else? It may be worth. Oh, okay.
Yeah, is it like just I don't know. And did you see either with the NXP, the stuff that the NXP folks did, or Nordic? Did you see any contributions upstream? Like, because you're maintaining the input subsystem, so all things like
Not sure.
keyboards and game controllers, etc. Like, did any of those guys or folks ended up like sending you patches and so on?
I think the NXP folks sent something, but I can't remember what. They definitely sent something for another project they were working on. The same folks are also involved in some drone autopilot type of project, and they contributed the client driver for Futaba remote control protocol, so you can have like your receiver and send it to your CPU. It gets the data via serial and inject input event. That was really good.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me. I might have asked you in the past, but a while back there was someone who contributed a driver for the Nintendo Nunchuk
Oh yeah.
thingy. Did you get a chance to actually try it?
No, not really. I don't have one, but it's a fairly simple driver, right? It's an XQC peripheral. That's cool. I wonder what.
Yeah, the driver is simple and easy, but the use case is nice.
Yeah.
Anything gamepads is cool.
Yep.
Nice. Something else in the sort of like random news and like stuff that's going on. One thing that a bunch of us realized recently is that, and we as a community probably need to do better. There's we love getting RFCs about all things like new people submitting or proposing new subsystems, improvements to existing APIs, etc. But there's probably way too many RFCs that that go unnoticed. So I mean, one way to address it is maybe trying to bring some light and some spotlight as part of the podcast. But we will need to find a better solution for sure. But one such RFC, which I had completely missed, and maybe you did as well. I don't know, but this is from Jonathan from Goliath. Quite an interesting proposal around having, and I think we discussed this in a community meeting in Amsterdam as well, having some solution to make it easier for people to have, if not, I wouldn't want to call it like an app store or a marketplace, but a solution for a so-called, like the proposal is to name it a ZMR, a Zephyr module registry, something somewhere, some kind of repo of things that are effectively projects that are effectively West modules that one could pull into their existing Zephyr workspace. And so, yeah, there is a nice RFC out there with thoughts and ideas of how this could look like, including having integration in West itself, like some kind of command, just like one can do apt get install and or add third-party repositories and so on, have the same ability to discover new modules and maybe to search. And I think this is interesting. Like we need to find a way, because I think like technically implementing this is not necessarily the tricky part. Like West is, I mean, yeah, this is not really tricky. The problem is not tricky to solve. It's more about like as a community, how do we make it work? How do we make it like a sort of a crowdsourced effort, and yet with some level of vetting of what goes into the repo, so that it doesn't become a huge mess of random stuff that doesn't work. And yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Had you seen that RC?
No, I haven't until you linked it to me. I think it's interesting. Depending on how you're set up right now, adding external modules is not easy, right? Like if you just do a checkout of the main repository and start running sample, and then you say, oh, I want to run this sample, but add this module, it's a bit of work, right? The best way, if you're set up to have your own application, you have your own manifest, and in the manifest you're pulling the Zephyr project and any other module. Sure, you're set up for adding any module and it's easy. But if you're just playing with it, if you're just experimenting and you're working around the main Zephyr option repository, it's a bit of work, right? So I think it's a good idea. You should do it. I need to read the RFC. I don't know what it actually says, but I think it's a good idea.
And there's even code, I think, as a proof of concept. Again, like I mean, I didn't look at the code, and no offense to the author, but I'm pretty sure the code itself is pretty minimal. It's more about like the idea and how do we want to make it work in terms of workflow for people to contribute new additions and so on. But yeah, cool stuff. I certainly encourage people to chime in the RFC if they have thoughts and ideas. Another interesting RFC is about bringing, and maybe this won't materialize itself as a contribution to Zephyr per se. Maybe this will live elsewhere. Maybe this will be in this external registry, but adding Graybus support to Zephyr. I don't know, maybe I should, but I don't know much about Graybus myself. Do you?
I know a couple of things. This is something that comes up every now and then. So Graybus was the protocol that was meant to be used to solve the problem of discoverability of devices in embedded projects, right? Like if you on your computer, if you plug a device on a bus like USB or PCI Express, there's a way for the operating system to find out what it is and associate it with a driver. If it's a device that you have on the system, you're going to have something like ACPI or UEFI that tells you what is there. For embedded, there's kind of nothing. We use device tree. By the way, there's a bit of I've heard it in a few talks. There's a bit of a misconception that device tree is a thing that started in Linux for embedded. Device tree is a thing from Spark, from Sun. And that was how like Ultra Spark Workstation were telling the kernel where devices are, and then it kind of got a. I think the project was called Open Firmware or something. Then it got adopted in other platforms as well. It arrived in Linux on PowerPC and Spark, and then it got ported to ARM as well. And now in Zephyr we use it in our own way for discovering the devices. But you have to compile it manually, right? You have to say, hey, I have this device on this I2C bus. So Graybus was trying to address discoverability of devices at a low level embedded bus. And my understanding originally this was designed from Google for Project ARA, which was the concept modular phone where you could swap like cameras, the battery, speaker, stuff like that. Which was an interesting concept. It's also interesting that it was being developed at the same time when Apple was removing the headphone jack. So we had these two diverging concepts, and we all know which one won. Anyway, so at the time, the protocol was running over high-speed LDS signaling thing called UniPro, which I just learned researching this now that it actually survived and it became the basis of UFS, which is the protocol for flash storage, which you probably have on your phone. But then Graybus is not using it anymore, and I think it kind of died for a while. Nobody cared, but the code in the kernel is still there. And then the next time it came up is when the Beaglebone guys picked it up again. And what they started to do was Graybus transport over TCP and UDP, if I understand correctly. And then they do TCP and UDP transport over IPv6, and they do IPv6 over Bluetooth Low Energy, 6 low pan, and we have a stack for that in Zephyr. So there's a lot of stuff in there. So what they can do, and this is something that I think they do with the Beaglebone project, is that they have this node that runs Zephyr over Bluetooth Low Energy, or even 802.15.4, I'm not sure. And then on the other side, they have a Beaglebone that has a receiver, and then they can expose the I2C bus on the node on the Linux system on the other side. The advantage of that is that they can use the Linux driver to access the I2C device on the other side. I am not sure it's a great idea. I'm gonna be totally honest, but I think I'll give it a go because it seems interesting. It's certainly very, very flexible. They implemented everything on top of this. They have the node discovery using MDNS, like all sorts of stuff. So it's interesting. I'm not sure how practical is it, but the Graybus code it's in Linux. It's in the kernel upstream for a while. And it's a shame not to use it. So I don't know. I think this is pretty exciting. Look, like if it gets integrated in Zephyr, I think it may be a good thing. And a lot of people spent a lot of work on this, so it would be a bit of a shame to throw it away, right?
Yeah, well, so that's there seems to be some activity and engagement on the RFC.
Yeah.
So like different silicon vendors chiming in and so on. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, there's a guy from C-Labs that says that they are using it for RPC from the application processor. And this is actually that we discussed even in the live with the Arduino folks yesterday. And I think it will make for a cool demo.
Yeah, and if it's if sort of like by definition, if it's something that already has a Linux implementation, that makes RPC between Linux and Zephyr even easier, even more standard. So cool. Should we? Yeah, I guess we can move on to some of the more like hardware related news. I think was it last week that we were talking about some of the Cortex M85 boards supported in Zephyr, and the fact that there's not that many and so on.
Yeah, so I was mentioning that there is only one on the market, the Renaissance one with a very complicated name, and I think that the ST folks were listening, and they. Oh yeah, absolutely. Because 3 days later, I got the news about the STM32V8. So I'm not sure what happened, but I'm fairly confident that they just listened to the podcast and they thought, oh my God, we forgot about doing an M85 part. We need to do it now.
Nice. So STM32V Like the V letter, that's a new, right? Like that's a new one. That means M85. That
Listen,
possibly
I actually ended up trying to figure out what that letter means in the STM32 family because I just cannot explain it. Actually, like nobody knows, but apparently the F for like F1, F4 stands for foundational, and
I
then
see.
F
I think L is low
low
power.
power, and U ultra low power, H
Yep, that's.
high performance, and
Oh, there
V
you go. So V is
either very high performance or vector. I have no idea.
yeah, but it's a beast, right? It has yeah, it's 800 megahertz MCU.
800 megahertz, 800 megahertz Cortex M85, 4 meg of. I think that the marketing team went nuts on this of ENVM, not to be confused with NVMe.
maybe.
Why did I whatever? So 4 meg of flash, and 1.5 meg of RAM with ECC, which is interesting, I guess. I don't know. But it's
Which I think we have some at least basic support for in Zephyr. Like we have the EDAC
uh,
driver for like
I
error detection,
I think
correction.
it's done in. Yeah, I don't know. I've definitely seen other boards with ECC support. I think people like it for harsh environment like IEMI.
Right.
And in this case, I guess it's important because the announcement was that apparently the part is already deployed on Starlink satellites. I can't believe that the ST guys made.
That went fast. Like from the
Yeah,
time you mentioned it on the podcast to
yeah,
shipping it in
it's
space. Wow.
already in space, and I'm actually I take a bit of personal offense by the fact that they have the prototype they gave them to Elon Musk and they didn't give any to you and I. I mean,
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's a PR coming up to add it. I hope there is a PR coming up to add support for the SOC and the board
yeah,
to Zephyr. Cool. And something else, and some other board that I really hope we will see added to Zephyr is I think that has to be the tiniest ESP32 board I have ever seen. It's basically the size of a USB-C connector, and so it's an ESP32C3, which yeah, it's crazy tiny, but yet it has a ceramic antenna on it, and I'm not even sure it has any other form of headers. Actually, it's really
no,
just
that's it.
meant to build some kind of yeah, built-in web server or some kind of like hacker device. I don't know, but it's really,
Yeah,
really tiny.
yeah, this is weird. This is in the SP32C3, which I'm somewhat familiar with. I made that design with it as well, and yeah, I love it. It's tiny. The only thing it needs is the power supply and a crystal, so the and the antenna. So the guy managed to fit
But
everything.
it's kind of funny because I'm putting my documentation guy hat on. We've had this discussion about the fact that we now have a reasonably good experience for people to browse the capabilities of the boards and like all the peripherals that the boards have, etc. And maybe not so much. Maybe we're missing something for the SOCs. But here in this case, what's interesting is that the board is the SOC. Like there's literally
Yeah.
zero peripheral. It's like if we were to add this board to Zephyr, we wouldn't do anything.
There's
It's just
nothing. Yeah, there's nothing on it really. Yeah, I think it's cool. It's a cool project. The guy used everything as small as possible. The linear regulator is the stupidest small package I've ever seen. Anyway, good job to him for soldering it. I think he did it by hand, judging from the picture. It's yeah, I don't know what to think about it. I've done some of these boards myself years ago with like at Atitiny. I did a Atitiny 85 board that fits inside the USB port, and it was obviously for pranking a colleague of mine who was very happy about it. Like the problem with this one is that with the C3 you can't do anything on the USB side, right? Because the USB on this chip is only for programming. So if you're thinking about using this for remote controlling your colleague's computer, no,
right.
I'm giving bad
Yeah, no,
ideas.
that's quite nice. I will have to look it up. I don't know if they will uh, put a few samples available on
Yeah.
TeamD or something, but that's quite nice. And yeah, I guess we have a few other sort of hardware related news. Some some pull requests that got merged. We have a new board from Alien Tech, an ESP32S3 board. Anything interesting to say about this one?
Yeah, it's one of those ESP32 board, but this one has a buzzer and a speaker, and also USB host, which I guess is not supported at this point, but it might be in the future, and SD card. So, starting to see more boards with audio capabilities. It'll be interesting to see if we can get more on the
Yeah,
application
hint,
side.
hint. Did I say audio
Yeah,
earlier?
you keep.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, having a mic and a speaker is certainly quite good.
Yeah, more
There's also
multimedia.
some a new camera driver, like those OV-XXX drivers.
Yeah,
There's a new there's support for the OV5642. So I didn't look whether we probably have a bunch of boards in Zephyr that already sort of like use it and that now effectively have the video support. Let me just look it up actually.
yeah, more multimedia stuff. We like these things in Zephyr.
Yeah, all right. So yeah, but that's cool. More video drivers, and then yeah, what else? There were a few.
Bluetooth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bluetooth shorter connection interval,
Oh, I was
and
waiting for this.
it's all written with like capital letters, as in this is probably like a term from the specification. That's probably a variant
The-
of Bluetooth Low Energy where it goes for like shorter connection. I think it's like a 6.2 feature possibly.
Yeah, I have no idea what happened to the other version of Bluetooth. By the way, I was stuck at 5.4, so I would have expected like,
Hmm.
6.0 and 6.1. Anyway, so apparently the specs for 6.2 are out, and it seems like the main thing, which is something that I was waiting for a while. They say that they were working on it. Is called shorter connection interval. So Bluetooth Low Energy. If you don't know, when you establish the connection, you have to specify a connection interval, and then obviously the host is going to use it if it has bandwidth for it. But anyway, the minimum you can have in BLE 5.4 is 7.5 millisecond, which means that your device gets to use the radio channel every 7.5 milliseconds. So that is 133 hertz. Now, why we care about this? Well, if we want to do like mice and keyboard, we want low latency. So we want to use the shortest interval as possible. Now, this does not mean that you can only send 133 update per second. It means that the chip has access to the radio channel every 133 times per second. But if you send a small enough packet, you may be able to send more than one during your time slot. So I actually have a Bluetooth Low Energy mouse, and I can do like 400 hertz quite repeatedly on a 7.5 millisecond interval. Anyway, but it's a bit of a limit, right? And yeah, it's still gonna be jittery at some extent. So if you're doing gaming, God forbid you use a mouse at less than 8 kilohertz update. So we have a new specification that allows to reduce this number. Now, the spec allows to go down to 375 microsecond. That is 2.7 kilohertz, which, if you're a gamer, is probably barely acceptable. For everyone else, is way overkill. The thing that I didn't like is that it's optional. So there's like two level of configuration, and the mandatory one goes down to 1.25 millisecond, so 800 hertz, and then the extension is gonna be 375 microsecond. They're called RCV and ECV, at least if I'm reading the spec correctly. So interesting spec, very cool. It's a bit sad that this stuff is not mandatory, right? It's a bit like Wi-Fi 7. There's a ton of cool stuff, but you don't know what's actually implemented. So if you buy into the technology, you have to do a bit of research to see if what you're buying can actually do what you want it to do, which is 2.5 kilohertz keyboard.
Yeah, right. But yeah, so that PR has merged. So yeah, there's that. And I think something else that we have also noted and noticed, this was like a huge pull request, but that finally merged. We now have support for Cortex A510 and Cortex A320. So that's
New Cortex A CPU. These are the application processor, right?
Yeah, the
And yeah,
beefy one.
I think the more interesting thing is that ARM went to 3 numbers for the Cortex A.
That's right.
Right, so, and 2 numbers for the M, obviously. Um,
But,
yeah, don't know anything about it, but we sure support
yeah,
it.
well, I mean, me neither, to be completely open. But yeah, this is more this sort of like, yeah, adds to all sides. We were talking about like the really small, really really tiny ESP32. This is definitely on the complete opposite. Like these are like really beefy application processors. But yeah, really nice to see that supported. I think that's
If you run Zephyr on a Cortex A, let us know. I want to know why.
yeah, well, yeah, that's a good. I'm sure people would do that. They don't only run Zephyr; they might run maybe Zephyr on one of
Yeah,
the cores. And,
yeah.
uh,
What I was told. People have like big FPGA and they needed to core, and the other core happens to be an A72. So sure, Zephyr.
exactly. So that's it for the general sort of updates and news, all things hardware and Zephyr and so on. There is a few, yeah, I guess, community announcements. One where I want to spend a bit of time talking to it. I mean, not long, but every year we sort of like renew the set of elected participants to the various working groups that the Zephyr project and the Zephyr community has. So we have, for those who don't know, uh, code sources on GitHub. Project is open for everyone to sort of like consume, and you can make PRs, etc. But some people might have even more like interest in the project. They are building products on it. They are yeah committed to this or that area, and they want to make sure that things go in the right direction, at least for them. And so we have a bunch of working groups dedicated to security and testing and all things tool chains and networking and architecture, process, and so on and so forth. And so we have we are at the time of the year basically where we call for participants. And as things go in open source in any open source communities, basically, you will see lots of people who are sort of like old timers and people who have, don't get me wrong, who have lots of like merit, who would just sign up for being part of those working groups. But I would love to see even more people signing up and putting their names in the hat to help with any of those topics that I just mentioned. So it's yeah, you have a few more um, days, weeks until this December the 3rd to consider joining those working groups. And we have usually weekly meetings and discussions also on Discord, etc. To address important topics. Don't be shy. Like you don't have to have hundreds of commits in the repo to add your name. Feel free to, I mean, you can ping me, ping Fabio, ping others in the community if you're not sure what that means or not sure whether you would be a good fit. But yeah, don't be shy, I guess, is my the bottom line for me at least. Anything else you wanted to say or share, Fabio, on that? Like you're part of a bunch of working groups, right?
Yeah. No, that's it. Yeah, no, take a look. This is a good chance of getting more involved in the project beyond using it and sending patches and reporting issues.
Yep, and we could certainly use people also for from different time zones as well. Like if you are in sort of like geographies that are sometimes underrepresented, in some ways that makes your input even more interesting or important because you might be sort of representing some concerns or some things that we are not necessarily always aware of as the project tends to operate in a more Europe and US slash America centric way of looking at things. So yeah, that's yeah. Please have a look. The link is in the meeting minutes. We will have yeah, and as always, like just stay in touch on Discord, in the comments on the YouTube channel. If you are watching or listening to the podcast on the YouTube channel, you might have already seen, and I think I've actually mentioned it earlier. We have a new Zephyr Tech Talk coming up next week for talking about all things Zephyr 4.3. with the release managers. So don't forget to RSVP to for this one. And yeah, I think that's it. Like and subscribe on the various platforms. We do mean it. It's kind of like a gimmick, but it really helps like to get and to see engagement from everyone. This helps reach new audiences. Any feedback you have for us in terms of things you would like to hear more of, less of, you want more jokes, less jokes, just tell us, and we will be back in a week. Thanks.
Bye.